Yes, what's going on, everybody? What's happening? What's shaking? What's doing? It is Wednesday, February the 12th, 2025, 7:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the Voiceman Studios in Toronto, Canada, and this is episode 313 of McRae Live. What's that? Do it again! We're gonna do it again! Here we go! Everybody! Do one more time! Scream 7! Scream 7! It's happening right now! Kevin Williamson! Ooh, what do you think, lady? Matthew Lillard is back as Stu. He's back! Stu! What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 313 of McRae Live and Scream 7. Why? It's time to end it all. Scream fans, I know you're not going to be happy with me. You're not going to be happy with me. You're like, no, Dave, it needs to go on and on. And listen, as long as it continues to make moolah the shekels, it will continue to go on and on. And there's no reason to stop it. If as always on the show here today, if you want your question for me to guarantee to... Let me try that again. If you want your question guaranteed to be read here on the show today, make sure you send it a super chat, or if you're a member, obviously a member chat. I do try to get to non-member chats and non-super chats as well, of course, but I can't guarantee it because obviously the member chats and the super chats take priority for obvious reasons. But I always like to remind people of that, just in case you think you have no hope in hell of ever having me read something. That's not true. That's actually not true. But anyway, and I will get to the Q&A part after I'm done yabbering here. But yeah, so, you know, Scream 7, it's in production now. I think it is, right? Yeah. And it's going to be out next year, 2026. Neve Campbell's Soup herself is back. Stu is back. Oh, what's going to happen? You got Roman coming in. I mean, maybe they could dig up Wes Craven and have him on set like Weekend at Bernie's, you know? Too soon? Shut the hell up. He died in 2015. He would find that hilarious. Wes Craven right now would be like, and listen, Wes Craven had a very dark sense of humor. I mean, he grew up very religious, very sheltered, and he might seem like a nice, sweet man, but he's right now he's in his grave going, "Oh, Dave, you scallywag." That's what he's doing. He's like, I love it, McRae, I love it. And so why not? And then bring back Drew Barrymore. Let's bring back Drew Barrymore. Bring back her character. Get her character in there. No, but look, I mean, you know, I like the first Scream. You guys know that. I've always liked the first Scream. I was 17 when it came out, so I remember it very well. I was the target audience for it, and I remember it very well. I didn't see it in the movie theater. Bruce, my buddy Bruce, he saw it in the movie theater. I didn't see it in the movie theater. I saw it on VHS in 1997. When it came out. But I have always liked that movie. It was fun. It was fun. And you know, as a kid that grew up through the 1980s and got into, you know, A Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and Halloween and all that, it was fun to see a movie being self-aware with that, right? You got Jamie Kennedy's character who's doing the whole, he's the movie guy. He's all of us, really. I mean, he's us, right? We live vicariously through him. And he's there and he's got Halloween on the TV. And I remember being, you know, I mean, I'm just like, Halloween on the TV. I don't know, boom, boom. I'm like, I know that, you know, and then of course, you know, seeing Wes Craven's cameo as Fred the janitor, in the outfit, in the sweater, no Jason, but it was fun. It was fun. So, I've enjoyed it. And as I've said many times, the sequels, I don't mind. I don't hate any of the sequels, but I think they're just really, at the end of the day, for the most part, diminishing returns. I don't think there's anything really that is as good as the first one. I mean, really, at the end of the day, how many sequels are? But I am part of the group that does agree or I am somebody who agrees with those who say that there has yet to be a bad Scream movie. Some are better than others, but there's no Halloween Resurrection, right? There's no, Freddy's dead. No screaming while the bus is in motion. Ah! Oh, God. There's no Jason Goes to Hell. They've yet to jump the shark. Maybe they've, gone fishing. Maybe they've gone fishing, but they haven't jumped the shark yet. They haven't put Fonzie on on water skis and jumped the shark. My worry is it's inevitable that it's going to happen at some point. At some point, it's going to happen. At some point, I mean, maybe it won't be Scream 7. I'm not going to sit here today and say it's going to be Scream 7. But at some point, it's going to happen. You can't go on indefinitely. I mean, it's not Scream 47. And it's like, it's amazing. It's really good. It's fucking amazing. It's like, at some point, a shark will be jumped, a fridge will be nuked. You know what I'm saying? At some point, something's going to happen. And maybe it'll be Scream 7. I don't know. But you got Kevin Williamson in the director's chair. Is that a good thing? Maybe. I mean, I think he's only directed one movie in his life. And I think, although I stand corrected on that. I haven't seen it. I don't know if it was ever any good. But obviously he is one of the creators, and he's come back. He's come back, and maybe it'll be great. Stu is back, and Roman is back, and Sydney is back, and and it's like, yeah, okay, all right. And I'm telling you, if they announce Wes is coming back, I'm like, okay, that's just actually that'd be amazing. He's loving it. He's loving it right now. He's loving it. Wes is great. He's great. He's on the other side right now going, you little son of a bitch. I love it, McRae. I love it. It's one of those things where I hear this. I'm cautiously optimistic. I want to believe that Kevin Williamson, now he hasn't written the script as of right now. He hasn't written the script that he is directing. So this is written by somebody else. Now, as Darren from the Slaughtered Lamb Movie podcast and Frank and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago, which, we agree that, I highly doubt that Kevin Williamson has not come on and added his 2 cents, and they've polished a few things, and he's added. He's one of the creators. He's one of the original guys. You know what I mean? He helped to create this universe. So, you would want to kind of get his thoughts. Hey, Kevin, so we have the script here. Do you have any notes? Do you have anything? You know what? I love what you've done here. I love what you did here. But maybe we could kind of tweak. If he's coming on as a director, that's a creative opinion that you may value and cherish. Some notes. And we might find out later on when the movie comes out, you see written by who right now we know it to be written by, but then you also see Kevin Williamson's name there, right? That wouldn't surprise me. So-and-so, and Kevin Williamson. It wouldn't surprise me if you eventually see that, which would tell you that he has contributed enough where the Writers Guild is like, yeah, your name's got to be there. It wasn't just an idea you helped contribute, you helped shape what we're doing. And so, and that wouldn't, maybe not, but it wouldn't surprise me. But I don't know, man. The title of the show today is Why It's Time to End It All. And, again, as long as it continues to make money, they will continue to make these movies. But you know me, I think there is value in things ending. There is value, not to studios, but, there is real value in stories ending. So the perspective I'm coming at it today is less the show business side, the business of show, and more the, filmmaker, artist side of me, because I think there's real value in that. I've always cherished that. I don't think there's anything wrong with things ending. Again, as long as because there's so many times, we see this in movies, we see this in television shows. You're very lucky today if you get into a show and you're able, and the network or the streaming service doesn't just cancel it, they give an opportunity for the show to complete its story. That does happen, but there's many shows that we watch and many shows that we get into. I mean, I don't get into many, but like in the, the collective us, right? There's many shows that we get into and many shows that people watch, and even movie series that, movies and things like that, especially horror movies, especially the horror genre, maybe not so much action or like Harry Potter. I mean, they have, but certainly horror genres that just go on and on. Very rarely do we ever get a definitive end. It just usually dies when the shark has been jumped, the fridge has been nuked, and it's not making any money at the box office. And by that point, the series is dog shit anyway, and maybe nobody really cares about it. But why let it get to that point, right? It's one of the reasons why, Jerry Seinfeld turned down, I think he turned down like $100 million or something astronomically ridiculous to do a 9th season of Seinfeld, which was at the top of the ratings at that time. And he said, no, it's done. It's done. I want to go out on top. I don't want to go out when it's like, oh yeah, it was good until season, Now, whether you think season 8 of Seinfeld was great or not is, whatever. The ratings say otherwise. It was at the top, and he turned down like a boatload of money. And he was like, nah, I'm done. There's value in going out on top. There's value in having stories complete, And like I said, there's so many times that Netflix will cancel a show and arcs are incomplete. Stories are, unfinished. It ended on a cliffhanger. I mean, one of the biggest ones for me, and I know that this show, I've talked about this, is not, the show's not necessarily targeted to I'm a middle-aged man, so I know it's not necessarily, I'm not the demographic, but a few years ago I was sick, and I was, under the weather, had a cold. I've talked about this before, and I was looking for a show to watch on Netflix, and I found a show called The Society. And it was like Stranger Things meets Lord of the Flies. You know what I mean? It was an interesting premise about these kids, college-aged kids, or high school, college. I think it was college. Long story short, they go on a field trip. Something happens, or there's a storm. They have to turn around. They get back to the town. All the parents are gone. Everybody's gone. They're fending for themselves. They have to figure out how to work things out. It was a really great show. Really, really great show. I was surprised. Again, I'm probably not the demographic for it, but I was really into it because I love the premise. I love the slow burn, love the mystery, really loved it. And it was great. Great performances, great writing. The acting was great. I was really into it. And I was like, oh, this is really good. And it ends on this wild, eerie cliffhanger. Like, what does that mean? There's a lot of, it's elevated. It's an elevated show. It's got, the philosophical and the supernatural and the, what does this mean and all this kind of stuff. And I love that kind of shit. And it ended on a cliffhanger, and then COVID hit. And they were getting ready to go into production on their second season, and for whatever reason, they, according to Netflix and the production, COVID killed the show. They just couldn't get everybody together because obviously it's an ensemble, thing with lots of people, and there are just too many parts. Okay, well then wait. Wait. There's lots of shows that waited and waited till things died down a little more and then they were able to go. I don't know. But anyway, the point I'm making is that they just canceled it. They just canceled it. So now, no idea what happens. No idea. No idea. We'll never know. You'll never know. It's just gone. And, we have to understand, too, that studios, and I speak generally here, because it's not that they don't care at all about art, but generally speaking, if something's not making money, if it doesn't have eyeballs on it, they don't care. They will cancel a fucking show right after a cliffhanger in the middle of something epic and amazing and just gone. They don't care. You ain't watching, we ain't making it because it ain't making money. You know, and I get it. This is show business. I get it, folks. I totally get it. But there's something disappointing about that. You know what I mean? And it's frustrating because so many shows, you know, because there's so many shows that are made, there are so many shows that get axed in that manner. That show, I'll think of it. It's on the top of my head here. Manifest, the show Manifest, which was originally on NBC or ABC or CBS, and then it got canceled, and then Netflix picked it up for one final season, and they were able to complete it. And I actually really got into that show. It was the wildest, gobbly. I mean, I love philosophical shit, but this was just like, what the fuck is going on? But I really got into it. I got into the nonsense of it, and then when it was canceled, I was like, but that's it. Like it's just done. There's no completion. There's threads that are not complete. The cliffhangers are. It's just done. It's just like psych, and it's like what? Thankfully, Netflix picked it up, and they were able to deliver a finale, and I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. But we don't always get that. There's value in that. These are stories, folks. Whether it's a film series, at least they're supposed to be stories, right? They're supposed to be stories. Whether it's a television series, whether it's a sitcom, whether it's a Stranger Things or a Manifest or a Society or a Squid Game or whatever. Pick your show. It doesn't matter. Dark. Ooh, I love that show. Talk about cerebral. But whatever it is, these are stories, and stories should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And even with film franchises, there should be a beginning, a middle, and an end at some point. And now with the Scream films, of course, because they're whodunit movies, as I've said many times, each movie is its own thing. Like you can watch a Scream movie and not have to watch the next one. Do you know what I mean? Because every Scream movie ends with knowing who the killer is and all that kind of stuff. But the point I'm making is that I worry, how long can this go on until it goes by the wayside of, your Friday the 13th and your Halloweens and your nightmares. And maybe there's Scream fans out there that don't believe it will. And I'm not saying that Scream 7 is the one where it's going to happen. I'm just saying that, the longer we go on here and, you're bringing back Stu. So now you've made a creative choice. You've made a choice here. I don't want to say it feels like desperation, but it feels like something that is wildly unnecessary. And I know that Kevin Williamson had this, he initially was going to bring back Stu for Scream 3, and then there was the whole Columbine thing, and I get all that. I get it. But he wasn't there in 4, and he wasn't there in 5, and he wasn't there in 6. And I question, is it necessary right now? Is Kevin Williamson going back and doing the story he always wanted to do? Or is this a new story? And you're bringing back Roman. Is it just a flashback? Or are they integral? I mean, because I can tell you right now, if it's just a flashback, a 2-minute flashback, Scream fans will be pissed. You don't want them back in a flashback. Now, maybe you think that might be the only logical way to do it, but that's not what you want. You want Stu back. I want him back and part of the narrative. And hello, Sydney. And he takes off his mask and he's all like, he's all fucking charged and stuff. He's like, it's been me all along. I mean, really, that's kind of like what you're kind of secretly hoping for, that he's the mastermind. No, you hope it's good. I mean, you hope it's really good. And you're not like, oh, come on. But if it's really good and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Since Stu, he's been pulling the strings the whole time like the puppet master. I mean, that's what you're hoping for. Really, you don't want a 2-minute cameo where they're de-aging him and seeing him at, Sydney's mom's funeral or something. That's not what you want. Come on. Be honest, you lying sacks of you-know-what. That's not what you want. You want Stu back. Yeah. Well, okay. But it better be really good. Is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk? Because all it's going to take is you to sit in the theater and go, yeah, oh, okay. I like this movie. I like this movie. I do. I like this movie. No, you don't. Yes, you do. Shut up. It's good. Come on, it's good. No, you don't. Admit it. You don't like it. I fucking love it. I love it. My popcorn. Yeah, and then you walk out of the theater and then 3 weeks go by and you're like, yeah, it just really wasn't that good. It was okay. Do you want just okay? You know what I mean? And again, I'm not saying they're not going to deliver something great. I just worry that maybe it's time, and maybe they're thinking this, I don't know. Maybe Scream 7 should be the one to end it all. Maybe, I mean, if you're bringing back Stu and you're bringing back Roman, okay? Now, Roman is dead, right? I mean, he's dead. Now, just because you're bringing back Stu and you're bringing back Roman doesn't mean that Roman and Stu are together in that narrative. Just because you're bringing them back, yes, it could be a flashback to Sydney's mother's funeral and you de-age them and Skeet Ulrich is back and they're all de-aged and sure, you could do that. But maybe it's that and it's also Stu is back as well. But doesn't it kind of feel like if you're now bringing the OG, I know they brought back Billy, but he was dead. He was a manifestation of and so we don't know how they're bringing back Stu yet. But if you're reaching into that bag, right? You're reaching into the tickle trunk. My Canadian friends will know what that means. Mr. Dress Up, like the Canadian Mr. Rogers. If you're reaching into the tickle trunk, right, which is where Mr. Dress Up had all his like costumes and all that kind of stuff. If you're reaching into the tickle trunk, you're reaching into the bag. You're reaching deep down and bringing out Stu. That feels like your creme de la creme, the big, masterful reveal, the Darth Vader unmasking moment, do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like this is, because where do you go from here? Like, that's really what it's all about. If you're bringing back Stu, now, could you have this last over a couple of movies? Sure. Oh, okay, which then gets into my idea, which was I thought they should have done this with 5, and then again 6, and they never did, which of course is the cliffhanger ending, because you don't have, because they're, whodunit films, right? So you don't have cliffhangers. And I thought to kind of turn around, have a cliffhanger. Maybe Scream 7 is the one that finally ends on a cliffhanger, and my invoice will be in the mail. No, but maybe it will. Maybe it'll end on a cliffhanger, right? And then who knows? But at some point, if you've reached into the tickle trunk and you're reaching all the way down and you're like, Stu! It's like, whoa, where do we go from here? I mean, where do you go from here? He's one of the OGs. He's one of the original ghost faces. I mean, it was cool they brought back Billy in the psychological manifestation Force Ghost kind of way, but if they're really bringing back Stu, doesn't that feel like it feels like a climax to a film, like a third act kind of thing, right? It feels like, and so you don't want to peak and go, yeah, and then we're just kind of going on, and now Stu's actually dead now, and we're just still going on, and then we'll reach into the tickle trunk further, and we'll make up with Melissa Barrera and bring back Sam. which totally could, I could see that. But that's what I mean, where it's like maybe it's time to really start thinking about ending the story. There's not, and I know that, yes, in theory, you could go on. Horror movies will be made forever, and you can always, it's cyclical, and you can always poke fun at horror movies and have some social commentary and look at the state of horror, where it is at that time, because, what horror was in 1996 is not necessarily what horror is in 2026. And so I get that, it's endless in what you could do, but I'm just feeling like the Sidney Prescott, Stu, Billy, that story feels like it's like you're getting to the point where it's like the Skywalker. It's like, I mean, how long can we, like, how long can we continue? Like, we gotta, at some point, which is why I thought the whole Sam and Tara thing was great. Now, obviously, we know about the whole thing with, Melissa, I was going to say Sam, not Sam Barrera, Melissa Barrera. We know all about that. Which is why I thought it was great. They felt like they were moving in that direction, right? They were moving in that direction, which is what they were doing. And then, of course, shit hit the fan, and here's where we are. Is this a knee-jerk reaction because of what happened with Melissa Barrera and then Jenna Ortega backing out because she was busy with Wednesday? Is this a response to that? Oh, my God, what are we going to do? We got to get asses in the seats, and we got to, let's bring back Sidney Prescott. I mean, Sidney was probably going to come back. Well, she was going to come back for Scream 6, and then they didn't back enough enough money up to her door, and she turned it down, and good for her. So they had to rewrite it a little bit. So she was going to be in it, and now she's in it again. And I just hope that her reasons for being in it are properly motivated, that it makes sense, because I'm having trouble believing a girl, because there's no, but if Stu's alive, then I guess that would make sense that maybe she feels that and Stu's going after her and after her kids or something. I mean, if it makes it personal, it might be, but my point is, how long can this go on? Can you carry whatever they're going to do in 7? Well, the answer is yes, of course you can. But should you? Just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? So, where is it going to go from here, right? What is it? It feels like we're entering the climax of this story. If you're reaching in and bringing out Stu, I mean, that's something, that's a big gun. That's an ace, right? That's your ace. If you're getting ready to play the ace, well, what happens when you play the ace? You play the ace, you bring out your big guns to finish what you've started, whether it's, in whatever sort of scenario, right? When you play the ace, you bring out the big guns, you do that as a finishing move. It's a finishing move, or at least a catalyst to a finishing move. And so that's why I feel like if you're bringing out the ace, this feels, I mean, there's going to be 4 more Scream movies? Like, why? I mean, why? Like, it feels like we're peaking here, right? We're peaking. I mean, we don't know what the story is yet, and this peak may last 5 movies. But that's what I mean by I feel that, Scream, unless Scream 7 is, if Scream 7 is just another Scream movie, and I know, Dave, how can it be just another Scream movie with Sidney Prescott back and Roman somehow back and Stu back? I mean, how can it be just another? I agree, there's going to be a little more than just that. But in terms of its narrative, like if it's not really smart and really, okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, then what do we, then, because I hate to say it, but every Scream movie's the same. I mean, every horror, they're all the same. But I just mean, like, I don't know. I just feel like let's end this. Okay, you're bringing out the big guns now. Let's give a great epic finale. And I understand if it makes $250 million at the box office, they'll make another anyway. But I just feel that maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to start moving in that direction so you don't jump the shark. So you have a nice tight series that is that are all pretty good. I mean, again, if Scream 3, which is generally seen as your weakest, if that's your bet or your weakest in the franchise, you're doing pretty good, man. You're doing pretty good. And so that's how I feel about it. That's why I feel that maybe it's time to really start thinking about ending this thing. There's value in stories ending. There's value in arcs coming to an end, in stories completing. There's real opportunity for emotion and heart and, just real moving moments to see, your characters happy. Complete, gone on. There's value in that. There's real value in that. And there's nothing worse than getting emotionally attached to a story and characters that just never end, or worse, just stop. And now we don't know what happened. It just stops. Do you know what I mean? And so that's why I'm hoping that Scream 7, I mean, it's not going to be, but I'm kind of hoping it's the last one. I'm hoping it's the last one. And I think it needs to be, or it needs to be soon, 7 or 8. I don't know, just because, I mean, we're getting to that point, man. We're getting to that point. And so I don't know, unless the plan is to make up with Melissa Barrera and get Jenna Ortega back and have some sort of cliffhanger at the end of 7 that leads into, an epic finale in 8. So now you've got Stu and you've got Billy as a Force ghost, and you got, Roman as another flashback, but Stu's actually there, and you've got Sydney, and you've got Gail, and you've got, Melissa Barrera as Sam, and Jenna Ortega as Tara. Now it's a big Avengers of Scream. I mean, maybe that's what they're hoping for. I don't know. But at some point, this feels like an ace. This feels like all guns, everything's on the table. We're heading for the climax. And of course, we still don't know how he's being utilized yet. And so when we watch the movie, it may be very clear that, no, they've utilized him in a very cool way where you still feel like there's more to tell. And we're going to get that in a future movie. Of course, they could probably do that. But yeah, I wanted to get on here again and remind people that there is value in stories ending. I know that we love watching our favorite villains and our favorite this and our favorite that, but I like it when stories end. I do. I mean, look at I know this is a weird example, but, look at that amazing ending to the Shawshank Redemption, and where they see each other on the beach and it's just like, there's so much, it's so moving and it's heartfelt and they fucking did it, man. They did it. You know what I mean? They did it. Feels great. And there's value in that. It's moving. It's emotional. I know it's a drama. It's not a horror movie, but you can create, drama, not drama as in unnecessary drama, catty drama, but like real drama and heartfelt themes and messages. And you can have a real moment where Sydney rides off, and she could still ride off into the sunset. I'm not saying she can't still, but I just feel like we're just egging this. Fuck. Here we go. Now we're bringing Stu back. Like I said, I mean, I'm telling you, man, if they bring back Wes Craven in a Weekend at Bernie's thing, or they're bringing back Drew Barrymore, I don't know. I think it should just, and look at the state of Marvel right now. Okay. And I know superhero fans, you don't want to admit this. And I understand. You don't want to admit it. It's hard to admit. No, there's no superhero fatigue. There is, but I understand why you don't want to admit that. And, it's just the movies are not very good. Yeah, but you know what? That's because there was in the story, and I'm not an MCU fan, but I'm looking, not that I'm not a fan, but I'm just saying I haven't followed all the movies. And you're like, well, then what makes you qualified to talk about this? Well, because I'm talking about story. I'm talking about story, 3 acts, characters, narrative. That's what I'm talking about. And when you look at the MCU and the 22 or 23 movies, and you look at that trajectory and how they built it up, right? And they're building to something big. Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. And that was the ace, right? That was, here it is, the ace, reaching into the tickle trunk. Here it is. And they peaked. And now for the last 5 or 6 years, it's like they're trying to scrape together. No, this is cool too. This is really cool too. And it's like, yeah, no, it's over. It's done. It's done. You did it. It's over. No, but there's still all these characters and these movies. And look, now we have this person as Captain America. And we can have this man say, no, but we can still, Ant-Man the Wasp, and we can get, this, and we'll get Harrison Ford as, right off. Shh. It's over. It's over. It's done. It's done. You had a good ride. Now, if you'd waited a while, you just ended with Avengers Endgame, and you just gave it a bit of a break, right? No, we got to go into phase 79. We got to go into phase 145 because we're spending money. We got to make money. Sounded like Yosemite Sam there, rootin' tootin'. But if you'd waited a while, then all of a sudden, imagine if there hadn't been an MCU movie for 5 or 6 years since Endgame, and all of a sudden in 2026, they're beginning a new phase. Let time to marinate, let it time to miss. Maybe something's going on, maybe. Then it feels like there's a separation. It feels like there's, a distinct separation. But I'm telling you right now, there's a reason why the MCU has not been able to hit the heights or the interest they had through the 2010s. There's a reason for that. And it's not just because the movies are not as good as maybe some of those movies. That's a part of it, but it's not just that. It's not just that. It's that you've peaked. You've peaked. In storytelling, the story has peaked. No, but Dave, there's all these, I get it. But you peaked, the emotional resonance, the emotional peak. The emotional peak. You know what I'm talking about, guys. Guys know what I'm talking about. But you know what I mean? It's over. Shh. No, it's not over. There's just a movie. No, it's done. It's over. You need time. You need to walk away. You need to miss it. And so there's value in stories ending. And the state of the MCU should tell you that. Because by all accounts, I hear that, the Brave New World is like, yeah, that's okay. There's another MCU movie. It's just like, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, because people are like, yeah, but if the movies were, yeah, of course. But it's over. You had a great run. And the story is now complete. Anyways, those are my thoughts, folks. If you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on Scream 7, of course. And of course, your thoughts on the value of stories ending and where you want the Scream franchise to end. Do you hope that Scream 7 is the last one? Do you hope that, or do you want it just to continue on? Listen, I understand that I can't get behind this. I respect your opinion, of course, but I'm not one of those fans that just wants everything to go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I'm just not like that. But if you are, well, then great. Then you wouldn't care if there's a Scream 143. But I think you should care because, I just think there's great value in stories ending that are moving and emotional and cool and awesome. And, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you can watch the journey and live vicariously through it over and over again. But it really sucks when you get attached to characters that don't have an end, arcs that are incomplete, characters that have no destination, characters that have no finish line. It's incredibly frustrating and it's bad storytelling, as well. I know this is unrealistic, but it's too bad we don't live in a world in show business where before a series gets canceled or before a movie begin to stop making movies, that there isn't some sort of law. Like, hey, maybe we'll get, Donald Trump, I'll sign an executive order. That's what I'll do. Oh boy. But there's too bad there isn't something where they have to greenlight at least one more season to finish the story. So at least the story's complete. You know what I mean? And because it's so frustrating when you get into something and then it just ends and they're like, no, sorry, canceled. And I get it. I mean, nobody's watching. Yeah, but I was watching. Yeah, but nobody else was watching, right? So I get it. There's no point. It's spending. I totally get it. But it's so frustrating because there's so many, you just like, well, so I guess there it was. John was reaching down, holding on to Lucy's hand, and there was the helicopter flying overhead. And he's like, I've got you. And it cut to black, and it's like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And canceled. And you're like, well, I guess we'll never know. We'll never know if he saved her, or if he dropped her, or if I guess we'll never know. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. Anyway, let's jump over to the chat room and see what all of you are saying. Two Dudes. Yeah, Two Dudes is coming back, folks. I've said that many times. I've even made a post about it in the community section. We're planning on coming back. The hope is next month. Because we have It's Me Billy perks to fulfill. There are 5 guests. It'll be on Two Dudes. Tony and I still talk. But he's very busy as well. But it will be a restructured show. So it's not going to be every week like it was before because our schedules don't allow for it. It may be a once a month thing. But it will be coming back. We were talking about it just last week. actually. I was trying to get through the Billy perks for the McRae Lives, and now my final Billy Perk show for McRae Live will be tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and then we can start setting up the shows for the two dudes. The first show that Tony and I have when we come back will not be a Indiegogo perk show. It'll just be us getting reacquainted with you guys and each other and having some fun and talking and shooting the shit. And then the next show or the next show after that will be a perk show because we want to get through those as well. But it'll be restructured a bit, very schedule dependent. What we were doing before was every Sunday or Monday at I think 6 or 7, and that was doable, a few years ago, but times change, schedules change. And so it won't be an every week thing. There might be a scenario where we do 2 shows in a week, perhaps, or, in 2 weeks, depending on what happens, but it's not going to be a regular schedule that way. So the plan is to come back. But there's a lot going on in Tony's life, of course, a lot going on in my life. And so, we're trying to restructure it and try to make it work, because there's no sense in doing it if we can't be consistent with it. Right. I mean, you don't want to come back and then go away for another year. Right. I mean, right. So we're trying to make sure that we have something down that feels like we have a little bit of momentum. Okay, so chat room time. Couple super chats here. Josh McKenna sends in $19.99. Thank you, Josh. Really appreciate that. Says, I'll be out at dinner with my mom celebrating her birthday. So I'm sending a super chat before the show now. Although I'm curious about Scream 7 and how Stu is involved, I don't want the series to go on and on forever. 7 is a lot. Yeah, well, it's just everything I've been talking about here, right? I mean, it's good to have endings, right, Josh? And happy birthday to your mother, Josh. And thank you for the very generous super chat. Appreciate it. Josh follows up with, but Dave, I'm excited for the Harrison Ford Captain America movie, only because he's in it. And that's the only reason. Would you watch anything he's in just because he's in it? Yeah, for sure. I mean, I haven't seen every Harrison Ford movie, although I've seen 99.4% of all his movies. But yeah, I mean, I'm not rushing out to watch Captain America because he's not the central. I mean, I know he's a big player in the movie, but by the time he turns into Red Hulk, it's not Harrison Ford. It's, it's CGI with Harrison Ford's face. So, yeah, like it's not my jam, but I mean, if it comes to Netflix, which it will eventually, and I'm bored one night, I might check it out. I might do that. Movie chat and more becomes a part of level number 2. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that. Brandon Collins sends in a member chat and says, all of this could have been said about the Halloween franchise after 6. Oh, it's true. They brought back their star and recalibrate. Williamson had a hand in that. He did. But, Halloween H2O was very Scream-like in a lot of ways. And I don't think Halloween H2O has aged that well. I know I'm in the minority on this, but I don't think Halloween H2O, I understand it's a fan favorite, but I don't, it's not one of my favorites. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. And I think it's very dated, and I think it's very mid-90s Scream. I mean, fuck, they even have the Scream music in it. And so, there's redeeming qualities, like in every Halloween film, even the worst ones, there's redeeming qualities. And I don't think it's the worst film, but I've never really been a big fan of Halloween H2O. And so if Scream 7 is going to be like Halloween H2O, and I know that's not what you're suggesting, but I just mean if it's going to be kind of like a, I don't know. I mean, I'll be very curious to see how Williamson handles the directing, because he hasn't written the script. Now, he may have had a hand in making adjustments and tweaks and things like that when he was brought on board as a director. And that's possible. But it's not like he's coming with his own script and they've hired him as a director. They hired him after Radio Silence, couldn't do it. And so we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Two very different things. You can be a great writer, not a great director. You can be a great director or not a great writer, or you can be great at both. But just because you're great at one doesn't mean that you're going to be great at directing. And so, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Brandon Collins, $2. Thank you. Says Dave's ending PTSD stems from all Alf from Alf being canceled. Oh, that was an awful. Yeah, that's a great example. A great example. Oh my God, that was brutal. Brutal. Yeah, that was brutal. That was 1990. They just ended it. He was just there. The alien task force was there. Didn't know what. And of course, they made that TV movie with Martin Sheen in 1996, which was just dreadful. So, the Tanners were put into the witness protection program and shipped to Iceland, I think, or something like that. It's just something ridiculous. It was terrible. And but yeah, those things just grind my gears. I really don't like when things, and I get it. They just end it because there's many times where. Like, the reason for it is because when you're making a season, unless you are greenlit for your last season, you don't know it's your last season. And, maybe the ratings are not that great to begin with, but the service or the studio or the network said, you know what, we'll take, another chance. We'll see if the ratings improve. And you take a risk. And so you don't really finish the story or complete the arcs, hoping for another season, but the ratings don't really improve that much. And you're canceled. And that's just it, and it's, I guess with sitcoms, it's not so much of a big deal if it's a half-hour sitcom because they're episodic, right? And so each episode is a different story. Some episodes may carry over into like a two-parter to be continued, right? But the old school sitcoms, like I'm talking about like the 3-camera sitcoms from the 80s, the 90s and it's episodic and maybe it's not so much of a big deal unless you end on a cliffhanger like Alf, which is just ridiculous. But had Alf ended with one of their earlier episodes and just never made another one, you could just go, okay, well, that's not really a big deal. You just assume that they went on and, whatever, right? But it's the ending on a cliffhanger. It's those cliffhanger moments, that you end on that with the stakes being so high and you just never, Has anybody in the chat seen The Society? Do you know the show that I'm talking about? Do you know the show I'm talking about? The Society? God, it was good. I really liked it. Josh Stevens sends in $9.99. Thank you, Josh. Really appreciate that. And says, speaking of Marvel, if a studio paid you big bucks to make a Marvel horror crossover, would you make it? Freddy versus Spider-Man, Jason versus Wolverine, Michael versus Punisher, Ghostface versus Deadpool, you pick. I probably would not. And the reason why I would not is because I don't know. It would depend on, listen, it would depend on a number of factors. How much am I getting paid? What's the story, right? What's the story? Obviously I know the lore and the mythology of of the horror characters well, your Freddy, your Michael, your Jason, and your Ghostface. But when it comes to Spider-Man, Punisher, Wolverine, and Deadpool, I know very little. And so that requires homework on my part to be able to brush up on who these characters are, and so I can relate to the story better, right? I have to be able to, in order to be able to give justice to a script, I have to be able to be passionate about it. I have to be really into it, whether it's my script or not mine. Maybe it's not mine. Maybe I didn't write it. It's not my idea, but they've come to me with this thinking I'd be a great fit for this. If it's not something I'm passionate about, it depends where I am on the seniority poll as well. But if a studio is coming to me, asking me to direct a horror superhero crossover for a big tentpole thing, chances are I'm doing pretty well. And so, because they wouldn't do that now, right? So chances are I'm doing well. But so I would have to, it depends on the story. I'm answering it like you want a real answer? That's my answer. I don't know. I could see myself turning all of them down. Being like, yeah, I don't know Punisher. I know who he is, but I don't know, I don't know how to, in terms of the directing and the blocking and the characters and the nuances and being able to weave a story here that does justice to this character. I don't know if I'm the right man for the job, and so I could see myself turning all of them down, to be honest with you. And I'm not a big fan of crossovers anyway, but yeah. That's my real answer. Lee the Machine Bowers, ladies and gentlemen. Lee, it's great to see you. Lee. What's going on, Lee? Haven't seen you in a little bit. Great to see you here. Sends in $4.99 and says, hey, Dave, if Stu is alive, how did he survive the TV on the head? Because if he's alive, he's got to be badly damaged and scarred, and he wants revenge on Sydney. Well, I think that's it. Right? I mean, if Stu is alive, it will be because he survived the big tube TV falling on his head, and surviving the electricity, and maybe he was just knocked unconscious. Maybe he was just knocked unconscious, and he survived, and which is easy to do. I mean, look, yes, his death, quote unquote. You can write a story where you justify him coming back. You can do it. The justification is not going to be in whether he survived or not. I think you can write a story where it's like, yeah, the TV fell on his head, badly hurt him. He was electrocuted. His face is all burned. He had a very faint pulse, and he was rushed to the hospital. And you can do that. I mean, that's I don't think that was the original intent when they made the first Scream movie, but certainly in retrospect, having it a success and doing all these sequels, you can definitely do that. You could definitely justify that. The justification now, and I'm not saying it's impossible to do, is going to come with, well, how come nobody knew he was alive? Like, why didn't Sydney know he was alive? Why didn't Gail Weathers, who's she's a reporter, why didn't she know he was alive? I mean, was it some secret operation where his parents at some big conspiracy, and that's where the justification is going to come from. If it's not just a flashback, to 1994 or 5, and it is that he is actually back, he has survived, then the real test in the story, and whether we go, oh, come on, or, oh, okay, all right, that makes sense, right? The line between those two things is going to come down to, where the hell has he been for the last nearly 30 years, and how is it going to be justified, and is it properly motivated? Right? That's where it's going to be. We all can agree, even I can agree, yeah, you can say he survived the TV. Okay, fine, he survived the TV. He's damaged, he's burned, all that kind of stuff. Okay, fine. But where has he been? And you could say, well, it's easy. He's been locked up. Nobody knew. Yeah, I get, okay, yes. He's obviously been locked up or secret. He's living in his mom's. I don't know. But what are you going to believe it? Are you going to believe it? I don't mean accept it. I mean believe it. Right? How much of your disbelief will you have to suspend in order to go, oh, okay. Right? Because it better be something that isn't wild, where you go, well, okay, I guess if he's there and they came in and then they put the thing on, and then he was put over here, and then the parents came and then she didn't because they were here, and then they moved over here, and then they had to do this, and then the power went out because of the court proceeding, you know what I'm saying? If we got to do mental gymnastics like that, and then we get to the point where we go, and that's why they didn't know he was alive for 30 years. And then you go, okay, that makes sense. It's like, is that what you really want? Or do you want something where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, totally believable, right? Because that's the real test. That's what it's going to be, Lee. That's what it's going to come down to. That's what the real test is going to be. It's going to be something like that, really, if we're being, totally honest with each other. Ben Tramer, Dave, I've been seeing on YouTube a series coming soon on Peacock, Haddonfield. Is it real or not? I would say it is nah. Probably just fan made. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, is there a celebrity you would love to meet, but their current life situation would make you sad at the same time? Mine would be Michael J. Fox. There isn't. Obviously I'd love to meet Harrison Ford, Steven Spielberg, but I'm not, but other than that, no, I'm not a big celebrity person. Like I said, I'm not going to get into the whole thing here. I've talked about it on the show before, but it's just because of the way I grew up in a media family. I was around famous people all the time. And so, and I work in the entertainment industry as well. So I've met quite a few, interesting and famous people in many different facets of the business. And so, I mean, that's not me saying that it wouldn't be really cool to run into Tom Hanks or holy fuck, it's Tom Hanks sitting over there. Holy shit. No, of course. But I'm not like, I don't go to conventions to meet people. I just go to conventions when I go to a convention. I hardly ever go to a convention. But if I'm going to a convention, it's usually to just look at the horror merchandise and pick up knickknacks and buy a hoodie and, all that kind. Like, I love that kind of stuff. I love looking at the vendors. The only celebrity that I've met at a convention would be Nick Castle. And that was 10 years ago. But that was like, oh my God, it's the OG Michael Myers. I have to go meet this guy. And he was, of course, a sweetheart, but that's it. That's it. I've never, that's not true. Obviously at Halloween 40 in 2018, I went around and I met Charles Cyphers and a lot of the Halloween alum there. I did do that, but I did that for the channel, right? If I was there on my own, I wouldn't have got, and I'm being honest. I don't say this in a pretentious way at all. I'm just being honest. If I was just there on my own as a guest, it's a Halloween convention. So I could have seen myself going up to certain tables, maybe, if there wasn't like, a big line, for sure. I could see that because it's Halloween. But I did what I did for the channel, right? I waited in line and got certain interviews and things like that because I thought, oh, this would be great for the channel. But overall and generally speaking, I'm not a big celebrity person. It doesn't really, I don't get excited about it, or anything like that. And it's probably because I know how the sausage is made, right? And so it doesn't really, it's not an overly big deal. That's not to say that if I didn't have a chance to meet Steven Spielberg, I wouldn't be like, holy fuck, it's Steven Spielberg. I mean, of course, I'm human. But I can't, I'm just being honest. I can't think of anybody other than like a Spielberg or like, Harrison Ford that I was like, oh, I'd love to meet them, cause in my mind, I'm like, under what circumstances? Like, what would I be like? I'd love to meet them. Well, how? Like, just meet them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but yeah. I don't know. Some people like that. Some people are celebrity crazy. I mean, they just go to everything and anything and it's cool. But hey, like I said, I think it really comes down to my upbringing in a media family and being around a lot of famous sports athletes and politicians and, it just, I'm just used to the show, we'll call it, I guess. Josh McKenna, what's going on, Josh? Thank you very much. Sends another $9.99. Says, I'm going to a Cease Winnis concert tomorrow. I have no idea who that is or who they are. My first concert ever. Awesome. That's really cool. Have you ever been to a concert before? I have. If so, what was it like seeing one of your favorite artists? The very first concert I ever went to was AC/DC. I was a little late to the party, not with AC/DC, but in going to a concert because I was already 22 when I saw them, or 21. It was their Stiff Upper Lip tour back in 2000, and AC/DC is my favorite band of all time. And I saw them in concert, and we were 14 rows from the. I said to my dad, I was like, Dad, because I knew he could pull some strings. And they were coming to, I was living in Ottawa. It was the summer of 2000. And I was living in Ottawa at the time. I had finished my first year of college, went back to Ottawa for my American friends. Ottawa is about 4 hours east of Toronto. It's our Washington, D.C. And that's where I grew up and went to high school and all that. And so I was back for the summer, and I said to my dad, I said, oh, I'd love to go to the AC/DC concert. AC/DC's coming to town. And he's like, uh-huh. Yeah, he knew what I was doing. And he's like, oh. And so my dad was like, I'll see what I can do. And that usually means that, he's going to look into it and he'll get something. And he did. And he got 2 tickets for myself and my brother Neil, who is also a big AC/DC fan. And so my brother Neil and I went to the Stiff Upper Lip tour, and we were 14 rows from the stage. So it was really good tickets. We were right beside the catwalk. Like usually AC/DC shows have that big catwalk that, if they can do it, they have that big catwalk that comes out from the stage, and Angus Young will, run down the catwalk playing his guitar, or Brian Johnson will be out there, singing. And we were like right beside the catwalk, 14 rows from the stage. It was amazing. I was just like, this is incredible. Now, my brother Neil had been to quite a few concerts in his life, so he was like, show me the ropes, but it was really cool. It was really cool. And I've never forgotten it. Actually, I just spoke to my brother Neil last night, and I forgot to bring that up to him. I should bring that up to him. Anyway, have a good time, my man. Have a good time. Enjoy your concert. Enjoy your concert. Josh Stevens sends another $4.99. Thank you, Josh, and says, despite your protest, Seven should pull a new Nightmare. In 96, they made a meta comment on horror's impact on culture, a great way to continue the theme. It is. I agree with you. And maybe I'm in the minority on this. Actually, I do. I think I'm in the minority on this. There's something I just don't feel. For whatever reason, I can't shake the feeling that if they were going to present a new Nightmare style film where everybody was playing fictionalized versions of themselves, which I'm not saying they're not, and I'm not saying that wouldn't be cool. I just, for whatever reason, think we would know that that's what they were doing. And I know that that's not necessarily the case. I know that. I totally know that. I just can't help but shake the feeling that we would know that that's what they were doing. It's that lingering thing. It's this instinct that something's just telling me that's not what they're doing. And maybe it is. Maybe it is what they're doing. And maybe I'll be completely wrong. I don't know. But there's just something that keeps telling me that's not what they're doing. And so now, would I be against them doing something like that? Yeah, maybe. Maybe I don't think they're doing it because they haven't run out of steam yet. Right? I mean, you have to remember that by the time they did New Nightmare in 1994, the Elm Street franchise was dead, and it had ran its course. I mean, the film previous to New Nightmare was Freddy's Dead. Okay? So you have to look at where the Freddy and Elm Street franchise was at the time of New Nightmare in 1994. It's not like they busted out a New Nightmare as the 4th installment right after Dream Warriors or something. Do you know what I mean? Right? I mean, it's not like they did that. They had nowhere else to go. Right? I mean, what else can you do with this character? And then Wes Craven came up with this ingenious idea. It was like, you know what? Why don't we make a meta film before meta was cool, and we'll get everybody back, not everybody, but we'll get our main players back playing fictionalized versions of themselves, and this might be kind of cool and inject new life into it, and this is kind of interesting, whatever the case is. But that's because the franchise was dead. And it's like, what do we, where the Scream franchise is ripping at the box office. It is hugely successful right now. I mean, I brought them up. I was going to talk about this earlier, but I forgot. Scream 2022 they're not like, they're not $1 billion movies, but, in relation to, for a Scream movie, Scream 5 made $137 million at the worldwide box office. Scream 6 made $166 million at the worldwide box office. Scream 5 domestically, which is US and Canada, made $81 million. Scream 6 domestically made $108 million. So over $30 million more, right? The international totals are roughly the same, 56 million and 58 million respectively. So the franchise is financially, box office wise, is in a good spot. It's making money, it's doing well, and I just feel to do that for a Scream 7 is a little out in left field. Now, I think maybe that's what it is. Talking through it and working through, I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm not saying that they wouldn't do it, and maybe when the trailer comes out, we're going to go, oh my God, that is what they're doing. But I can't help but shake the feeling that they wouldn't do that right now, because some people might be like, oh, well, that's cool, but I don't know. Call me crazy, call me all the names you want, But I don't think that's what they're doing because I think the franchise is too healthy to do it. Or maybe you could make the argument and say, but that's when you want to do it. That's when you want to do it, McRae. You want to do it when the franchise is healthy. You don't want to wait till the franchise is dead and then do it. You want to do it when it's healthy. It's Jerry Seinfeld. You want to do it when it's healthy. And there's an argument to be made for that as well. There's an argument to be made for that as well. And maybe that is what they're doing. Maybe it is what they're doing. But I just can't help but feel that it's not what they're doing. Not yet. And, but we'll see. We'll see. We shall see. Lee the Machine Bowers. Oh, wait, did I get that one? No, he sends another $4.99. Thank you very much, Lee. I really appreciate that. And says, watch when Stu turns out to be the killer once. He takes off his ghost face mask and costume off. He's dressed like Shaggy. Could you imagine? Hey, what's going on there, Sydney? And Sidney Prescott goes, ruh-roh. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? What would you do? What would you do if all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the ghost face mask comes off, it's Stu, and he goes, what's going on, Sydney? Or he goes, hello, Sydney. And Nev Campbell as Sidney Prescott goes, ruh-roh. Oh my God. What would we do? What would you do? You would be sitting there going, what the hell? What the hell just happened? That would be crazy. That'd be crazy. That would be crazy. That would be crazy, crazy. Let me see here. Oliver Mercer. What's going on, Oliver? Sends in £5. Thank you, Oliver. Says, hey, Dave, have you checked out Blade Runner 2049 yet? I have not. If so, what are your thoughts? It's a fantastic sequel. To Blade Runner, and Harrison Ford is excellent. And yeah, no, I do want to see it. It's just one of those movies one of those legacy sequels I have not yet seen. I still haven't seen Dr. Sleep either. That's a legacy sequel that I've heard great things about, and I still got to see that one as well. I just haven't been able to see it yet. Just haven't been able to see it yet, folks. Matthew Farisi, part of level number 2. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you for returning to the McRae's. Have I missed any super chats? Let me go back here. I just want to make sure I am not missing any superior chats. I don't believe I am. It's snowing here right now, by the way. We are supposed to get about 15 to 20 centimeters of snow tonight, which is about 6 to 7 inches of snow, I think, or maybe 8 inches of snow. It is snowing. It doesn't look like oh no, movie chat and more. I did miss one. Sent in £2. Thank you. Says, was your sis crazy you didn't get Kurt's autograph? No. I mean, maybe she would have been if she was a teenager. But my sister is 15 years older than me. So, no, she just thought it was really cool that I saw Kurt Russell right there. For those of you that don't know, I'll give you the Coles notes on this. When I was in Los Angeles in 2015 for the Voice Arts Awards, being held over at Warner Brothers, I was nominated for my first Voice Arts Award, and we went all out. We stayed at the Roosevelt Hotel, and we had a driver, and all these things. It was just awesome, and because it was special, right? You want to go out all out on your first. I've been nominated 3 other times since, and it's always special. Don't get me wrong, but that first time was like extra special, right? Anyways, long story short, we're staying at the Roosevelt Hotel right on Hollywood Boulevard, and the night we were going to the award show, we're coming down these stairs. And in the lobby to go out to where we're getting picked up by, where we're getting picked up, out where the valet is. And behind me, I hear this voice. And it sounded very familiar, like just really familiar. I'm like, God, I know that voice, but I couldn't, I'm coming down the steps. There's a couple of guys behind me talking, and I'm like, God, I know that voice sounds so familiar. It's that laugh too, I'm just like, that voice, I know that voice. And so when we got to the bottom of the steps, I deliberately walked to the right over to sort of where the desk is so I could let whoever was behind me walk past me and I could get a good look at who it was. Well, holy fucking shit, wasn't it Kurt Russell? It was Kurt Russell. The Kurt Russell, dressed to the nines. We're dressed up. He's dressed up. And I'm like, well, is he going to the Voice Arts Award? He could have been. I don't think he was because he wasn't there. I didn't see him there. So I don't think he was at the Voice Arts Awards. I think he was going somewhere else. But he was dressed up. He was with an older gentleman with 2 little kids. I don't think they were his kids. Maybe they were his grandkids. I don't know. Didn't see Goldie Hawn. Didn't see anybody else. But they were waiting out for their Suburban to peel up and pick them up. I don't know where they were going. It's Hollywood. I mean, there's probably 900 award shows going on that night. You know what I mean? I mean, who knows what was going on? Functions, award shows, galas. I mean, he was going somewhere. And I don't think he would have been staying at the Roosevelt because I think he has a home in Los Angeles. So he was probably there to maybe pick up the old man. I don't know. But it was really cool. And so I quickly snapped a photo on my phone for my sister because my sister, growing up through the 80s, had the biggest crush. That was her celebrity crush. Him and, Tom Selleck, right? So she loved, so I snapped a photo. It's a bad photo, but you can kind of tell it's him, but it's kind of, anyway, so I sent it to her right then and there. And I was like, you're never going to believe who's at the Roosevelt with me, and it's Kurt Russell. It's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Were you able to go up and talk to him? I said, no. They got off and, got and left. I'm not the kind of person to, if he was alone, if Kurt Russell was sitting in the lobby and he was just sitting there alone, yeah, I would have said something to him for sure. But I'm not the kind of person to, it's just not my style. For me, it's not professional. I'm not the kind of person to walk up and interject and interrupt. It's just not who I am. So I just like, he's busy. He's going off to his thing. I'm going off to my thing. But it was really cool. It was definitely a cool moment. And as soon as I saw him, I was like, yes, of course, Kurt Russell. Of course. Because that voice, and that laugh, the laugh, he's, that laugh he's got, and some, it was so, I was like, yes, of course. Like, holy shit, it's Kurt Russell. That was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool moment. But no, she didn't demand anything. Matthew Farisi. Oh no, I got that. Hang on. I just want to make sure I've got everything. I'm not missing any, superior chats. I don't think I am. No, that looks like that was the last one. Okay, good. I got the Lee Bowers ones, right? Lee, the Stu one. Lee, you sent in 2, right? Yes. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any. Schnuggity buggity. All right. Alex Shambach says the Scooby-Doo idea might be as bad as an idea as Myers being controlled by an It's totally true. It's totally true. It is. But just imagine that. The film is running along as it should, right? The film is running along as it should. I forgot to turn the light on over there. I was like, why isn't it as blue over there? I forgot to turn the light on. It's running along as it should. And then just, hey, Sydney, what's going on? Ruh-roh. It would... What would you do? Seriously. Come on, what would you do? You're sitting in the movie theater and this happens. What would you do? Nobody wants to answer me because it's too silly. They're like, no, Dave, that's too silly. Whatever happened. Come on. Play along. Play along, you goddamn humorless bastards. No. Next Gen says, Dave, have you seen Joker Folie deux yet? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. I have not. No, I did not. I have not. I did not. I loved the first Joker. I loved it. Thought it was terrific. But I have yet to check out Joker 2. Follow the spiders. Ooh. Ooh, I like that name. Follow the Spiders. I like that name a lot. Sends in $9.99. Thank you very much. Says, hey, Dave, how's your week going so far? So far, so good. I got a random fun question for you. All right. What's your top 3 desert island films? Ooh. If you were stranded on an island for life, which 3 films would you want to have? Ooh, this is a tough one. Off the top of my head now. Now, I reserve the right to change my mind if I feel like I need to change my mind. But off the top of my head, I would say The Shawshank Redemption, because, you know, it's about hope and redemption, and it might give me hope that maybe I could get off that island one day. That or even Castaway, because that's kind of, you know. But Shawshank Redemption's got that real heart, that emotion. That one for sure. I would say I got to have a big nostalgia movie, a big comfort movie, like The Goonies. Got to have The Goonies on there. You know, just adventure, big comfort movie, you know. And then I would say... that third one's going to be tricky. Shawshank Redemption, The Goonies, and maybe... I don't know. I'm feeling right now maybe Ghostbusters. I don't know. For whatever reason, I just thought of Ghostbusters. I don't know. Shawshank, Goonies, and Ghostbusters? You need to be entertained. You got to be entertained. You got to laugh. Or no, maybe Planes, Trades, and Automobiles. Maybe Planes, Trades, because it's a funny movie with great heart. It's got a great message at the end as well. I don't know. Some of those. One of those, maybe. I don't know. Something like that. Something like that. And thank you for the super chat. Follow the Spiders. I appreciate that. Let me see here. Let me see. Next Gen says, oh no, I got that. That was a fully do. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave, I'm happy about Nev Campbell being back as Sydney, and I don't think Drew Barrymore will come back. Just my opinion. Hope you're doing well. No, I would think that she probably wouldn't come back either. I mean, listen, what would you guys do? I mean, what would you do if they actually announced that Drew Barrymore was coming back? I mean, well, then you know, I mean, this has got to be a flashback of some. Why? Listen, the more dead people that come back, the more credence it gives to the new nightmare scenario. You know, we find out that David Arquette's coming back, and Drew Barrymore is coming back, and you know, what's her face there that played Billy Loomis's mom is coming back. I always think of her on her character on Roseanne. You know, but I mean, if all these dead people start coming back, then you really start to know, okay, well, this is just, I mean, they're just, you know, that's all this is. So yeah, I don't know. Alex Shambach says, how much do you believe Scream 7's recent casting announcements has been to compensate for the loss of Barrera and Ortega? Is it a factor or inflated by social media? I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's, you know, I think it's a little bit of both. I think two things can be true at the same time. And I think that how much it leans into one or the other, I don't know. But most of social media has absolutely no idea how the industry works. And most of social media has no idea what the hell they're talking about. And I'm not sitting here saying that I am the arbiter of all things. You know, I'm not saying that. But I know more than the average person, just simply because I'm inquisitive, but also because I work in the entertainment industry. And so there's a lot of things that I know and that I see. And I know people who also work, I have friends in the entertainment industry as well. And so I also learn from them about, you know, certain things. And so, and that doesn't mean that you can't do that too, but generally speaking, the average movie fan is shooting from the hip and shooting from their emotional place. And so, you know, they will say things that may be true, but also may not be true. And so I think it could be part of it, but I don't think it's necessarily true that it is the sole reason. You know, it may not be the sole reason at all. You know, if you were working, if you had insight into the workings of how this film came together, you might realize, oh yeah, that's part of it, but they actually had this idea and they were working toward this anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like it could be something to that degree. And now they've had to make some adjustments, but they were planning on Stu's return since Scream 5. You might find out those things, right? I mean, there's a little bit of at face value, yes, because you don't know much or we don't know much what's going on. It's easy to go, ba, and ba, ba. You know what I mean? And sure, I can totally see that. But, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. There's so many conversations that happen. There's so many meetings that take place that you and I have absolutely no idea happen. Look, I can tell you, having made 2 movies in my life, I can tell you there are so many meetings and so many conversations and so many things happening and so many Zoom calls and that you guys have absolutely no idea about. So many ideas that we talked about, things we were working on, things we wanted to do that didn't do, things we couldn't do, things that you have no idea about. No idea. Right? And so you can imagine how much that's compounded when you're working with $10 million budgets and major features being released by studios, right? And so there's so many things that go on behind the scenes that the average fan just has no idea, and so it could be part of it, for sure. It could be part of it. They think, okay, we have to restructure this. We don't have Ortega. We don't have Barrera. Let's see what we're doing here. But it could also be something that it could be timing. It could be maybe it was always kind of leaning that way, but now's the right time to pull the trigger too, right? And so I think it could be a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. And maybe that sounds like a cop-out answer to some because, we live in a black and white world. But that is the truth. When you make movies, when you work in the business, it becomes you learn very quickly. There's a lot of gray area and there's a lot of production meetings and a lot of ideas and there can be a lot of chefs in the kitchen, and there can be a lot of things being tossed around and it's not a one size fits all and how things come to be and get made isn't necessarily because of one thing or another. And so I think it's possible. And I think that there may be truth to it. But I don't think it's necessarily as black and white as social media would make it seem. Like, oh, we lost Barrera and Ortega. Well, scrap that. We're just going to do this, and this for that sole reason only. Now, is it also possible that it could be that? Yeah, it absolutely could be that. It could be 100%. But it is more likely that it's not just that, right? There's a lot of wheels that are turning, and so, yeah. But it's a good question. Calvonics music, what's going on? Calvonics is going to be on the show. Sends in 5 Canadian shekels. Thank you, buddy. All the way from Vancouver. Says, Drew Barrymore's death is still my favorite opening in all of horror, and Scream hasn't been as intense since. Do you guys agree with that? If you're watching live right now in the chat room, if you're watching after the fact, do you agree with Calvonics music? My fellow Canuck, that Drew Barrymore's death is still, obviously... Yeah, it's still your favorite death in the Scream franchise, favorite opening in all of horror, and Scream has not been as intense since. Well, there's some truth to that. Definitely. Lord of Dogtown says, why do you always answer a question with a question? I'm inquisitive. Well, inquisitive, I don't always answer a question with a question, but I think what you're likely referring to is I'm very careful with how I answer certain topics, right? Because I'm putting myself out there on the internet, right? And so I'm always very careful with my words and choose my words carefully because I want to make sure that I'm I really do think about the question, right? And maybe that's not as fun I'm not saying that you're thinking this, but maybe for some people it's not as fun because I'm not shooting from the hip and, I don't know, saying something really off the cuff, which I do all the time as well. But if I'm asked a question that I find quite interesting, I think about it. And of course, I'm not prepared. Like, it's not like I've been prepped with these questions beforehand. So these are really my answers right off the cuff. And so I like to think about it and, think about certain, like, how am I going to answer that? And if it's a question or if it's a topic that might be a bit dicey, maybe it's a hot button issue in the world of movies, or it's a hot button thing like, the Melissa Barrera thing, or I choose my words carefully for a few reasons, because that's the kind of person I am. I think you guys deserve that, because then that I'm thinking about it. I'm being truthful. I'm really thinking about how I feel about it. But I also work in the entertainment industry. And it's important for me that I choose my words carefully, so they don't come back to bite me in the ass. And that my words are not taken out of context, and that if some idiot decides to try and take my words out of context, it's very easy for me to show the whole clip and say, well, yeah, but you forgot this part, right? Because people like to do sound bites of you and take you out of context and make you look bad. And I don't want that to happen. When you put yourself out there, I don't want that to happen. And I want to mitigate that and limit that as much as possible. So I'm very careful with my words. I've also been, accused of repeating myself a lot. And, my answer to that is, well, you have to remember that not everybody is tuning into the same shows. I never repeat myself. Like, when I repeat myself, it's not because I think I have not talked about it already. It's because I'm talking about it again to the new people who are watching. You always answer a question like it's the first time, because there's always somebody new who's watching or who's going to tune in afterwards. If you've heard me say it 7,421 times, that's great. That just means you're a loyal viewer and you tune in all the time, right? You're a loyal viewer. You tune in all the time. You watch every show. That's amazing. And I really appreciate that. But I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the same question from people who don't tune in all the time or who don't watch all the shows, right? So again, I choose my words carefully, and I always make sure that I'm giving an honest answer of how I feel. And sometimes I'm not quite sure how I feel. Sometimes I am a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. So I mention that. I go, well, you know what? I'm not really sure. That's a really great question. And so let me think on that here for a second and let me walk through it. One of the things that you'll often find here on my channel is you'll watch me, you will have the experience of watching me come to the conclusion of how I feel in real time. Because sometimes I'll get asked a question, I'm like, how do I feel about that? I mean, I could say, a simple answer and just go, blah, 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 blah. But is that how I feel? How do I feel about that? And you will often watch me come to realize how I feel about that in real time by walking through it and weighing both sides of the coin and both sides of the, equation. Being inquisitive just means that you're curious, and you're curious about a lot of things. And so when I say that I'm inquisitive, it just means that I'm curious and that I make the effort to be informed. Right. And so I work in the entertainment industry. I'm a professional voice actor. That's what I do. But the entertainment industry is a big industry. And I'm also a filmmaker. And so I'm learning from other people in the industry. And I'm an inquisitive person. So I'm like, hey, this person's job, they're a, first AD. Well, I know a bit about first ADing, but let me learn more about that. You know what I mean? Or, hey, that person, they're a line producer. Well, I know what that is. But you know what? I want to learn more about that. So that's what I mean by that. I think I take after my dad in that respect, because my dad was very inquisitive. He knew the art of the question. And I think I get that from him. So that's naturally built into me. And, there's other facets of the industry that I'm a part of that I know about, but I want to know more about. And one of the areas is knowing more about the business of show business and the business of film and how show business works. And I'm not saying I'm the world's foremost expert on it, but I'm a naturally inquisitive person, which allows me to naturally take initiative on my own to learn about those things. And not every movie fan is like that. Most movie fans are just movie fans. They just want to watch movies and get lost in the fandom and all that kind of stuff. And they don't really know how the business of show business works. And so, and as a filmmaker who wants to have a career as a filmmaker, and I've just started pursuing that seriously now, right? That's really important. I went to film school in the late 90s, and I learned a lot there as well. And so, yeah, all these things are just part of who I am and part of how I answer questions and how I think about questions and the questions being asked to me. And so, it's if I had time to prepare, right? If these were questions that I knew were coming and I had time to prepare like a politician, then I'd be able to give concise 2-minute answers because I prepare. But these are live interviews, right? And so sometimes I'm like, oh, that's a really good question. Let me think on that. Let's work through this. How do I feel on that? Let's work through this together. You know what I mean? And it's fun. It's fun. So yeah. Movie Chat and More sends in $5. I'll go back here. £5 says, when Laurie is looking at Riddle in the backyard, do you not think Myers had time to bolt into the hedge? If you look closely, it even moves quite a bit. When Laurie is looking at Riddle's backyard, do you think Myers had time to bolt into the hedge? Well, he's in the backyard. If you look closely, it even moves a bit. The hedge, well, it's probably moving because of the wind, Richard. I mean, the laundry sheets are moving like this. So I think if the hedge is moving, it's probably the wind. That's my answer to that. Danny Dank sends in $2. Says, people go to these movies for Ghostface. That is true. That is true. I'm not sure what you're alluding to there, but I don't disagree with that statement. Michael Dammit sends in $5. Says, what was the biggest unforeseen challenge in filming either Billy movies? The biggest unforeseen challenge, I would say, you know what? Again, off the top of my head, it depends what we're talking about. If we're talking about, we could talk about development, pre-production, production, post-production. If we're talking about production, the actual filming of the movies, I would say that one of the challenges that that was challenging was learning the art of blocking your actors and having the proper time to rehearse. And so that was a challenge. That was a challenge. And and learning because that, I mean, look, there are classes you can take on learning how to block actors, on learning how to block scenes. And so that was a challenge. And that was a real kind of interesting learning experience, how to, block the scene, bring the camera crew in to watch. First you work with the actors, then you bring the camera crew in. They find out where everybody's going to be standing, everybody's going to be moving. They can figure out where, to set up the lights. All that was really interesting. And I mean, obviously I had known that that's what you do. And we learned that in film school, but because it had been so long, because I left film school and, got into the performing side of the entertainment industry, going back to the filmmaking side, you had to brush up on those skills and those things that you learned. So that was tricky in terms of the production side. On both films it was, because obviously Billy 2 was a little more, there was a little more involved in that film. And so in terms of the blocking of the action and the stunt work and all that kind of stuff was a little more involved. But it was great to work with our stunt coordinator, James Binkley, who's worked on, The Boys and The Expanse and It Chapter 2. And I mean, to work with a stunt coordinator of his caliber was amazing. And he was great. And so learned a lot from him. And so I would say, yeah, in terms of production, I'll say that, getting the blocking down, making sure you have time to rehearse, knowing where you want the actors to be, which is all part of the job anyway. And we knew that, but just kind of making sure that, we had that down was, some scenes were a little tricky, you got to kind of have to, a little tricky to kind of figure that out. So it was, it It was fun. But there was a lot of challenging things. There were a lot of challenging things on both films. You know, I mean, these are, you know, as I said many times, they're fan films, but they were professional productions. And you know, with professional actors, professional crew. You know, the second film obviously was a full scale union shoot. And so there was a lot that we learned, and it just makes me hungry and eager to get back out there again. Thank you, Michael, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Bobby Hall says, I never get sick of Dave repeating himself. He could do 7 Halloween rankings in 1 week and I'll watch all 7. You know, it's true. It is true. I could totally do that. Yeah, no, look, I again, not to repeat myself, but I do repeat myself, but it is only for emphasis and effect, like I'm doing right now, right? So like I said, if you're somebody that notices I repeat myself on certain topics or things, it's just because I've been asked the question again, and I'm answering it like it's the first time this person is hearing it, because it is. And there could also be 50 other people in the chat room that day that are hearing it for the first time. So you always answer it like it's the first time, you know, because that's important. And if it's the 900th time for you, that just means you're loyal and you watch every show. But not everybody watches every show. I mean, listen, how many times have I been asked if Two Dudes is coming back, right? You know, and how many times have I mentioned it's coming back, we're doing this or doing that on a show, and I got asked again here on this show, right? I made a post about it in the community section on YouTube, right? You know, now that was a few months ago, but I did, right? But not everybody sees that. Not everybody logs into YouTube. Not everybody is, you know, we have hardcore fans. We have our committed, loyal viewers and watchers. And I love you guys, and that's amazing. But we also have casual fans and casual viewers who tune in here or tune in there. Dave's not talking Halloween. I'm not going to tune in. You know, there's those people too, right? Do you tune into every podcast that you watch, or do you pick and choose depending on who the guest is and what the topic is, right? Chances are you pick and choose depending on what the topic is. Well, it's no different here, right? So, yeah. All right, what's the time here? All right, have I got all the super chats, folks? Have I got all the super chats? I just want to make sure I haven't missed any. I don't want to miss any super chats. I don't think I have. No. Michael Dammit was the last one. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. I don't think I have. Oh, Calvonics music going hard into the paint, nearly at the buzzer, ladies and gentlemen. My brother, my fellow Canuck from Vancouver, one of our associate producers on It's Me Billy Chapter 2 sends in 25 Canadian shekels and says, who, in your opinion, was the most effective and scariest? Ooh, I love questions like this. Unpopular opinion, but I think Roman from 3, as he not only orchestrated everything, but he seemed to move quickest and trip less often on his own costume. Ooh, great question. Well, you know what? So I haven't seen the Scream films maybe as much as you have. So I wouldn't have been able to know that fine detail of he seemed to not trip as much as the others. I would say that that's a very good question. Most effective. I don't know. I mean, you know, when you watch some of those early Scream films, there is something a little kind of, you know, hokey and goofy about it as well. But I think that was the intention too. Like I think, you know, Ghostface falling over air, you know, as he's chasing somebody, I think was sort of part of it. You know, it was part of the satire. It was part of the satirical nature of sort of the lightheartedness, humor of also the scary in some ways. And then, you know, I mean, obviously the ghost face in Scream 5 is a bit more visceral, you know, and a bit more intense. And then obviously in 6, it's a bit more intense. So I do think that they're a bit more mature, I think, in 5 and 6, as opposed to the first 3 films. Even the first 3 films, there's a whimsy about them. There is still that, I mean, there's a satire, right? It's a satire. They're not spoof, but they're spoofy. Like, they're not spoofy like, Scary Movie. I mean, that's a spoof film. Scary Movie, Airplane, Hot Shots Part 2, Loaded Weapon. I mean, they're all, that's what a spoof movie is. But the Scream movies have like a spoof-ish element to them. Like, even in the original film, right? You've got Wes Craven dressed as the janitor named Fred with a Freddy Krueger sweater on. I mean, that's pretty spoofish, right? That's pretty spoofy. That's really like almost breaking the fourth wall and being really self-aware. It's just a moment. It's just a shot. Like, it's just a scene. It's just a shot, But the Scream movies, by and large, are satirical, and they poke fun at themselves, and they kind of, turn the camera inward on the genre and the characters and the tropes and all that, and it's fun. And I think because of that, the first 3 Scream movies have a bit of that whimsy. And I think 5 and 6, although they are still Scream movies and didn't really reinvent the wheel, they are a little more mature, but that could also be because, what a Scream movie is now. I don't think you could make the same Scream movie for today's audiences. I think it might be a little dated for today's audiences. How much they lean into the goofiness of the Scream universe. And it's not that the goofiness isn't there in 5 and 6, but it's there less in 5 and 6. It's a little more mature, we'll say, in 5 and 6, even though it's still kind of a Scream movie. Whereas the first movie, especially, and the first 3 movies overall, they still kind of have that slight goofiness to them. So it's a great question. I'm not entirely sure, but I would say that maybe I don't know. You know what? I'll pick, for nostalgia reasons, I'll pick the originals, because obviously that's my favorite of the franchise. And then I'll pick maybe Ghostface from Scream 5. I don't know. We'll pick, what's her face? Mikey Madison's Ghostface. That's what we'll pick. Thank you, Calvonix. Really, really appreciate that. All right. I just want to make sure I've got everything. That was the last super chat to come in. All right. This was a good show today, folks. This was a good show today. All right. Listen, that is going to do it for this episode of McRae Live. I really appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you to all the super chats that came in today, the member chats as well. And thank you for watching on today's show. You guys are amazing. Thank you, of course, to my amazing moderators for doing what you guys do. I really appreciate it. If you're watching live or even after the fact now, jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts on Scream 7 and whether or not you think this is the right time to start kind of wrapping things up here. I mean, are you like me and you really appreciate, when stories have a definitive end, when characters get to, live happily ever after? I mean, maybe not all the time, but, there's at least an end to somebody's character that isn't necessarily death, right? I mean, you can end a character in death, but do we always have to end a character in death? I mean, can we end a character not in death? Jump into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on anything I had to say here today as well. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to follow me on social media and you're not already, all my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. That is going to do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Alrighty. Cheers.